Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. War in 2024. I think we are still in progress here. I think World War III has already started, and I think the history books will show that as such, that it started when Russia invaded Ukraine effectively. And, it doesn't matter who the good guy is or the bad guy is. I think the history books will show that that is kind of the beginning of the tensions, and then we're here we are today where NATO is effectively on the ground in Ukraine, supporting Ukraine with money, weapons, ammunition, everything, intelligence, and advisors on the ground, and soon to be even potential combatants in terms of aircraft pilots flying the F-16s, etc. And who knows who has been in there for the upkeep of the Abrams tanks that Russia is already capturing. It's a war that's ongoing between NATO, the West, the U.S., and Russia and China. And like I said, I think the history books will show that. So war in 2024, and others have mentioned the same. And I think we're on the precipice of a very significant biblical time when the four horsemen of the apocalypse are riding, and maybe they are already riding. Maybe we're already seeing kind of the beginning of the birth pains there. But I think what is next to come is a great war with Israel and Iran and Russia, Ezekiel 38 and 39. And a part of that, you can see the cluster of red arrows on the left bottom side. Part of that is the destruction of Damascus, Isaiah 17. And here we are. This is an article from Zero Hedge about Israel striking Damascus again. And they continually do it, and this is against Iran's proxies. The whole tit-for-tat thing ended with basically Israel going in there and doing a minor strike after the missile barrage from Iran. And now it's back to the proxy attacks. Israeli aircraft reportedly attacked a location on the outskirts of Syrian capital Damascus. So when does the situation come when they destroy Damascus as a city, when Damascus becomes a ruinous heap? That's Isaiah 17. That's what kind of we're looking for in terms of significant milestone events. And but they keep doing it on the outskirts of Damascus, the airport, the supply lines from Iran to the proxy folks there. So interesting things, and Israel is still taking care of business in Syria, and of course the big Rafah incursion is upcoming. Israel's getting ready for that, and of course we also have the humanitarian port or dock that the U.S. is building in the Mediterranean beside Gaza there. And the U.S. military generals have come out and said basically that U.S. military will likely be fired on, and they will return fire. This is related to the Palestinians in Gaza, the folks living there. Of course, there's no such thing as a Palestinian, but they will return fire. So the U.S. Is now going to have boots on the ground effectively in Gaza. Will they provide some security? I don't know, but you talk about mission creep, and that's certainly it. So that's interesting news. Now, how does World War III start? War in 2024. Well, when World War III kicks off, the first thing all countries are going to do involved, if you're, it doesn't matter what side you're on, you're going to try and go after the enemy's infrastructure, their supply lines, and but most significantly their communications. If you take down their communications, their infrastructure is not going to work properly, and their supply lines and supply chains are not going to work properly. So Russia's going to go after satellites, cell phone towers, via cyber attacks, whatever it may be. Russia has lots of cyber attack groups in their military, as does China. And here's an article from defense1.com. Russia's space nuke could render low Earth orbit unusable for a year, officials say. So they note Moscow's recent veto of UN resolution against putting nuclear weapons in space. It says the detonation of a Russian nuclear space weapon could render low Earth orbit unusable for a year. So a detonation at the right magnitude and the right location could render low Earth orbit, for example, unusable for some period of time, it says. And again, what are they going to do? Try and do with that? Where they're going to try and take out communication satellites, internet, whatever it may be. Elon Musk's Starlink system, because you know what, the Ukrainian military is using Starlink to, use for their drones and use for intelligence gathering and communications. So that's what they're going to go for first. So when cell phone towers go down and the internet dies, look out, because likely World War III, in terms of the hot war, has officially started. So that's one key sign. When your internet goes out, when your cell phones stop working, look out. So that's interesting. There's a big situation in Canada here, which I was just made aware of. This is from toronto.ctvnews.ca. I've never heard of such an exercise. I don't know if this is a common thing or not, but the Canadian Armed Forces are going to conduct a military exercise between Toronto and Wasaga Beach this weekend. Friday, Saturday, and it's along the 401 400 series highways. Motorists traveling to and from Toronto and Wasaga Beach this weekend should expect to see increased military traffic on roads and highways. The CAF, Canadian Armed Forces, will say they will be conducting a training exercise from Friday to Sunday that will include personnel from the Canadian Army Reserve. During that time, military vehicles will conduct convoy and supply operations training. Are they getting ready for some sort of grid down event where supply chains are broken, maybe because GPSs are jammed or communication satellites are taken out by Russia, by the article we just looked at? Could very well be. And they're getting ready for supply chain issues. They're getting ready for massive cyber attacks. Maybe this is the intelligence that the CIA and the U.S. intelligence has, that a major cyber attack or black swan is going to occur. And maybe it's related to supply chains, trying to disrupt the supply chain. And so could this be the use of the Canadian Armed Forces getting ready for such a thing, especially around such a major hub as Toronto? How do you get food to, I don't know how many people are there, 3-4 million people in Toronto? How do you get food to them? Well, you have to have a significant supply chain and convoy logistics set up for that, and the Army would do that. So that's what it looks like they're getting ready for. Do they have any intelligence that something like that's going to happen, where they have to actually do something like this? Well, I don't know, but interesting nonetheless. They train for things they think are going to happen. That's what armies do. So they think this is a possibility that supply chains could be cut, so they're getting ready for it. Soldiers participating in the training dubbed Exercise Trillium Venture will not be carrying weapons or ammunition, according to the CIF. Training exercise ensures our readiness to respond to emergencies such as flooding and wildfires in Canadian communities, and in cooperation with other domestic agencies, it says. Members of the public are advised to take extreme caution when approaching military vehicles. Interesting stuff. So, again, this is an exercise. I never heard of them doing such a thing in the past. Maybe they have, but I've never heard of it. I grew up in Ontario, and I've never heard of this. Maybe I missed it, but interesting in this day and age. You'll see this kind of creep into the mainstream, that the military is getting ready for conflicts or for floods or fires, whatever it may be. And you'll see this more and more, and we'll get used to it. We won't think anything of it. We'll just think, well, the military is getting ready for it. But what they really are getting ready for is World War III, and they're just trying to keep the public under control, basically, by not scaring them. So we'll see a ramp up in this. I think it's interesting, though. All right, the last days, the Antichrist, who is going to bring Cashless Society, and he will cause all, both great and small, to take a mark on their right hand or their forehead. And if you don't have it, you cannot buy or sell. This is what the Bible says about the Antichrist figure, the world leader who saves us from World War III, economic collapse, and worldwide famine. And this is an article on leohoman.com. 98% of the world's central banks gearing up for a new system of programmable, trackable digital cash. 24 nations will have CBDCs by 2030. Now you look at that timeline, and boy, 2030 is kind of near the biblical timeline there of the 7-year period, and that happens to be in the latter half of my particular understanding of the 7-year period. The first 3.5 years, maybe the end of this year through 2028. 2028 is the 6,000 years, the summation of 6,000 years. Now that could be off a little bit. That's based on the death of Jesus Christ and 2,000 years from the death of Jesus Christ. So if he was crucified in 28, year 28, then 2,000 years from that is 2028, and that would be the end of 6,000 years, or 6 days. And we know on the seventh day God rested during creation. So on the seventh day, that will equate to the millennial reign of Christ. The year to the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. Sorry, a day to the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. And so this is where we get this idea, and that timeline could be off. Maybe the midpoint there is 2030, and I'm off by a year and a half, and that may indeed be true. But on the other hand, it's likely that banks are ready to go with CBDCs if they really had to, very, very quickly. And in a crisis, especially in wars, technology ramps up very, very quickly. So it says the era of cash money is nearing an end, and with it will come the end of privacy. And that's exactly what the Bible describes. No man can buy or sell save he that has the mark. You will have no privacy if you do not take the mark of the beast and pledge allegiance to this Antichrist figure. You will not be able to have a mortgage, a license. You will not be able to pay property taxes because you won't have this digital cash to pay with. You won't be able to barter, because if you do, they're likely going to put you in jail along with everybody else you're bartering with. So you're not necessarily going to be able to run to the hills and barter with people, because anybody in the system, for fear of the penalty of jail or worse, is not going to be trading with you, bartering with you. And there's going to be a penalty if people try and skirt, this digital currency. Speaking of the Antichrist and the totalitarian sorts of rules in 1984, this is from reclaimthenet.org. Australian leaders demand platforms curb online misinformation, float online ID, again, think of Mark of the Beast, and AI-assisted content surveillance. So again, 1984 ID, constant surveillance of websites, social media, everything, all ratting you out to the police about potential crime ongoing. And this is what's happening in Australia. Australia is certainly a scary place, to be honest, for freedom of speech, for total and complete surveillance, and for the totalitarian government, like through that through the pandemic. It's just scary what they're doing there, and I would be afraid to live there, to be honest. But this is going to come to many more countries. It says Dutton wants new, this is the Australian guy, Dutton wants new and more stringent laws that would deal with disinformation, misinformation, and even boasted about his initiative to get the Five Eyes, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, and US, to exert pressure on social media, and maybe to follow along with this crackdown on free speech. So it's a scary world we're living in. We're very, very close to the edge. All we need is a black swan event, a flashbulb event, just like the pandemic. When mainstream media got everybody riled up and afraid of the things, we quickly went into lockdown, and no one said a word. If we have a similar event, World War III or cyber attacks or something incoming, then all they need to do is whip up the fear via mainstream media, and likely they would be able to pass a bunch of these laws against this information in the name of public health and safety, and in the name of keeping you safe. The government is your daddy. The government is your protector, and so they're going to take away all our rights and freedoms that way. And the Bible describes that this is what's happening in the last days, when the Antichrist takes power. So, all right, folks, I will leave there. It's an interesting news day for what's coming, and we'll see what comes out of this Canadian Armed Forces military exercise. Probably nothing, but interesting, again, that I haven't heard of this before. So stay tuned, folks. Be prepared, always prepared, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.